October 6, 1974. A windy Sunday night in Queensland, Australia. Two police officers respond to a call near the Carnival Youth Camp. What they heard that night would haunt them forever. Blood-curdling screams, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It sounded like more than one person, two women, screaming for their lives. But the screams were distorted, the wind carrying the sound in every direction. After 40 minutes, silence. The officers searched but found nothing. What they didn't know was that these screams belonged to two young nurses, Lorraine Wilson and Wendy Evans, who had just embarked on a journey that would lead them to a horrific end. 20-year-old Lorraine Wilson and 18-year-old Wendy Evans were more than just nursing trainees. They were best friends. Lorraine, a country girl from a close-knit family, and Wendy, a city girl with the same compassionate heart. After completing their first year of studies in Sydney, they decided to celebrate with an interstate bus tour. Their adventure ended in disaster when Lorraine's Volkswagen Beetle broke down halfway to Brisbane. Stranded and short on cash, they made a fateful decision. They would hitchhike. After a positive experience hitchhiking to Brisbane, they decided to risk it again to get back home to the Wilsons' farm. Wendy reassured her sister, "I've got Lorraine to protect me." Those words would become tragically ironic. When the young women failed to arrive in Dubbo, Lorraine's mother knew something was wrong. Soon, a police investigation was launched, but with no concrete information, it was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Months passed with no leads. The Evans family began to lose hope. Then, almost 21 months later, on June 25, 1975, an elderly couple stumbled upon a gruesome discovery near Murphy's Creek, a small settlement near Toowoomba. What looked like a rubbish dump turned out to be a burial site. Amongst discarded clothing and personal belongings, they found a human skull. It wasn't just a rubbish dump, it was a burial site. Police arrived to uncover the remains of Lorraine Wilson and Wendy Evans. The scene was brutal. Both women had sustained fatal head injuries, possibly from a large piece of timber found nearby. Wendy's face had been bashed to a pulp. Remnants of a thin cord suggested they had been bound. 90 personal items were scattered around, but their wallets and bank books were missing. Yet their jewelry remained, suggesting robbery wasn't the primary motive. A man's silver signet ring was also discovered at the scene. When police officer Ian Hamilton heard about the discovery, a chilling memory resurfaced. The screams he and his partner had heard on the Toowoomba range the night the nurses disappeared. He checked his records. It was the same day. Investigators concluded the screams were Lorraine and Wendy's, and they had likely been murdered that same day. The murders bore similarities to other unsolved cases in the area. Young women hitchhiking in the Brisbane Gold Coast area, bludgeoned to death, bodies disposed of in the open. The media dubbed it the work of the Gold Coast hitchhiker murderer. Was it possible that Lorraine and Wendy had fallen victim to the same killer? A large reward was offered, and a bus driver came forward with a possible sighting of the women getting into a light green EK Holden. Another witness, Anthony Doherty, recalled seeing two women matching their description getting into a green Holden with a white top, occupied by two men. But the lead was dismissed. Years turned into decades. The case went cold. An inquest in 1985 yielded no suspects, but Lorraine's brother, Eric Wilson, refused to let it rest. In 1988, a break, an inmate in New South Wales claimed two men had confessed to the murders. The names, Unsolved and Trevor Hilton. Trevor Hilton was in jail at the time of the murders. Detective Paul Rouge took an interest and found that the Hilton and Laurie families were well known to local police for violence and run-ins with the law. 3 separate people had suggested police look into the Hilton and Laurie crew. They were known for picking up teenage girls for sex, sometimes forcibly. A local couple, Brian and Velma, recalled witnessing a man throttling a young woman while trying to force her into a pale green Holden with a white top around the time of the disappearance. Another man was marching a second woman toward the car as she screamed for help. They were too scared to intervene. Detective Rouge showed them a photo lineup, and Brian identified Wayne "Boogie" Hilton, a known violent member of the Hilton-Laurie clan. Rouge discovered that the cord used to bind the women was similar to that used at the Darling Downs Baking Company, where Wayne Hilton worked. A former colleague of Hilton's claimed that Hilton had told him he had to quit his job because "they're right onto us," regarding the nurses' murders. Another member of the crew, Alan "Shorty" Laurie, became extremely agitated when Rouge questioned him. He panicked and refused to answer any questions. Rouge was transferred, and the case stalled again. In 2003, Lorraine's brother, Eric, wrote a book about the case, sparking renewed interest. Detective Inspector Kerry Johnson reopened the investigation and re-interviewed witnesses. A neighbor of Wayne Hilton claimed to have seen him ripping blood-stained carpet out of his car the day after the murders. Another associate claimed that Hilton and others bragged about giving 2 girls a hiding. One man claimed that Hilton and Laurie had confessed to the crime. Despite the mounting evidence, fear kept many silent. One woman admitted she was raped by Shorty Laurie, and another man, but was too scared to follow up with police. Other couples recalled seeing women being forced into cars around the time of the murders, but did not intervene. One woman, Norma, even had one of the victims come to her door for help, but on the advice of her husband, did nothing. In 2013, a new inquest was held. The 7 primary suspects were publicly named. A woman named Kim Sandercock testified that she had been told the details of the murders by a woman named Ellen, who claimed to have been present. Ellen stated that the nurses refused the men's advances and were labeled as prick teasers. The men wanted to teach the nurses a lesson and planned to rape them. During the drive, one of the men began hitting one of the nurses over the head, ultimately killing her. The other nurse was hysterical, and the men decided they had to kill her too. They then pulled up to a remote site in Murphy's Creek and dumped the first body. The remaining nurse saw this as her chance to escape, but the man chased her down and began bashing her multiple times in the head until she was no longer moving. However, Kim claimed she had no recollection of Ellen or the conversation. The coroner didn't believe her. The coroner concluded that Kim was likely either present at the crime or had a close connection to someone who was. He cited the bystander's effect, where the presence of multiple witnesses reduced the likelihood of intervention. The coroner stated that the women were killed in a violent, vicious attack to satiate the perverse sexual dysfunction of a despicable gang of thugs. He concluded that Lorraine and Wendy were abducted and killed by more than one person, but the identities could not be established with certainty, with one exception: Wayne Hilton. Wayne Hilton had died in a car accident in 1986. As such, he would not face justice. The other suspects were never charged. Though disappointed, Lorraine and Wendy's families were grateful that someone had finally been held accountable. A plaque in memory of Lorraine Wilson and Wendy Evans was installed on the grounds of St. George Hospital in Sydney. The case of the nurses who never returned remains a chilling reminder of a time when fear and intimidation silenced a community, and how the kind of people Lorraine wanted to help most ended up killing her. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. Please stay safe. Till next time.